coming, the sun's zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is good there, engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning.
Hello everybody and welcome to the By the Minute Arsenal podcast, our last, if you like, official podcast of the season, although I suspect we will be doing another one fairly soon to discuss managerial change. I'm glad to say we have a full house. I am Matt H. We also have Matt V. Hello, Matt.
Hello. We finally made it. What a traumatic and often disappointing season it's been, but we've got through it together.
It's true, isn't it? I think this is the second year we've done it, and I think after last year I was hoping for something that wasn't quite so traumatic, and it has proved to be worse in terms of our achievements. But we're going to come to that later on. Before we get there, also need to say hello to Pete. Hello, Pete.
Hello, Matt, and I'm glad to be sharing the last pod of the season with you. I'm glad to be here, however ill-informed anything I have to say is going to be.
Yes, we will get the confessions out now. None of us, it seems, took great note of the last two league games. I think that reasonably understandably, understandable reasons. If I can get my tongue in. We will have a brief chat about those, and I think we'll move on relatively quickly to a look at the season as a whole, which may be quite depressing, but at least I feel we're duty bound to do that kind of thing. And then we'll look at that slightly bigger picture. We'll have a little bit of manager sort of past and future chat. And of course, the all-exciting Prediction League. We can have the final update on that, whether me and Pete like it or not. We can we'll discuss that. Right, so we'll go through the last two games of the season pretty quickly. Two away games. The big deal, really, apart from the obvious one of the manager leaving, was the desperation, the right word? I don't know, to get an away point in 2018, which we had not done in the league. So we started the quest at Leicester on, I can't remember what it was it Tuesday or Wednesday. And we didn't succeed there. We lost 3-1. We did get back to 1-1 in the second half, but ended up conceding a penalty. We played a lot of the game with 10 men due to our new chap being sent off. Rather than go through the teams and all the other stuff about this, I'll just ask each of you for any thoughts. And Pete, I know you may not have seen as much of the game as Matt and I did, but so we'll start with Matt. I didn't really have any thoughts on the game particularly. I thought Maitland-Niles did quite well in the build-up to the goal, if I'm remembering my notes correctly. I was sort of tuning in and out of it. I didn't have a particularly great stream. Just as I tuned in, it was when Leicester were about to score the penalty to take the lead. And then they scored right at the end to make it 3-1 and to wrap things up. Matt, any thoughts about the team, the performance, anything really, or not, if you like?
I think as our away games go, it wasn't too bad really. I know we lost 3-1, and our defending at time was awful, but I don't think we were too bad at all. Obviously, conceding early was a real issue, and going down to 10 men was an even bigger issue. But we looked quite dangerous going forwards at times, didn't take our chances. The first goal we conceded set the tone. It started with some awful defending from a corner, some more awful defending to refuse to clear it, and then some even worse defending when it then got crossed in. And then Mavropanos getting sent off. It was just, I don't really know how to describe it. He just had the ball, held on for a bit too long, tried to pass it, got caught, and pulled the man down. I think he had too many arguments about the red card. I think from that point onwards, I don't think we were probably holding up too much hope. It was good to see Aubameyang score again, part of his incredible start. But yeah, we chucked it away again. But no, and I know I sound relatively nonplussed, because I think despite it being yet another away defeat and against a team who has been awful recently, I think there are some mitigating factors. I think that red card did change the game, and I think up until the penalty we were right in the game too. So I don't think it's as bad as the scoreline suggested.
Yeah, and it's difficult to read too much into it, isn't it? Either in any direction, given the context. When we talk about games, we quite often have them as sort of individual events, but this is obviously all about context, and it's the end of the season, and Leicester don't really have anything to play for. We didn't really have very much to play for at all, apart from a bit of pride. If you're looking at positives, Aubameyang continues his good Arsenal start to his Arsenal career, which is very promising for the future. We'll see how that continues next season. Pete, do you have any thoughts at all about this lineup or anything else? Or, as I say, feel free to move us along if you would prefer.
Well, I'll just mention that the Mavropanos sending off. I don't know. I haven't seen this or anything, so I have no idea whether it was deserved or anything. But I was pleased to hear, apparently, that Lauren Koscielny was sent off quite early in his Arsenal career as a young player. So maybe this is a good sign and not a bad one.
Well, there we go. That's an interesting thought. I mean, it was. I did see that the sending off. It was pretty deserved. It was a fairly clear case of just holding on as the guy was about to go past him. There wasn't much as we might have liked that to be the case. There wasn't much doubt about that. But yeah, interesting thought. Other than that, I don't think there was a great deal to say. It was a very typical Arsenal away performance this season, perhaps if I can put it that way, which is fairly damning in itself because, as we know, they have not been great. Well, let's shift quickly along then to the last game of the season, away at Huddersfield yesterday. We won. We won 1-0. We had our last chance to get our away points, and we got them. It was Aubameyang again after 38 minutes. It was an excellent goal. Very much a relaxed atmosphere, to be honest, in the whole game, because Huddersfield, of course, had secured their safety during the week. So yeah, an enjoyable game and a win, and at least the manager went out with a victory. Where should we start with this? Matt, I'll start with you. I don't know how much you saw of it. I was able to see most of the game, and Huddersfield, quite frankly, I thought were the better team, to be honest. Although I think, or certainly were a little unlucky not to get anything out of the game. Not that they cared, I think, by that point, as they famously celebrated their staying up by essentially going out on the lash for several hours, which is good stuff. It was a good goal. I mean, it was a very Arsene Wenger goal, should we say, to take the lead and indeed hold on to it. I'm rambling on it. Have your say, please, on anything you'd like to say about the team or the individual players or performances or any aspect.
As you said, I think Huddersfield started a lot better than us. They should have scored once or twice in the first 10 minutes. I mean, we put out a pretty different defence and keeper to the Leicester game, but as is in the case all season, defence didn't really know what it was doing. So they definitely should have been in front, and we took about really half an hour to get into the game. But yeah, great goal. Lacazette played a nice 1-2 with Mkhitaryan, I think. Passed it out wide to Ramsey, who knocked it back across the goal. And on Ramsey, you'll probably talk about him a bit later when it comes to talking about the summer ahead, but it was good to see him as captain. Hopefully the first time of many. So, I thought that was a really good move. And hopefully the last time I have to watch Ospina in goal for Arsenal, because it's becoming a bit like the boy who cries wolf. I'm never going to know when he actually is injured, because every time a cross comes in, he catches it and immediately falls to the ground, grabbing his ribs, and it doesn't inspire much confidence. I think this game had it all really. Had a Ospina feigning injury. Xhaka was peppering the goal from distance. Defence was awful. We scored a really good goal going forwards. But as you said, the main thing was that we got an away point or 3, and the new manager doesn't have to worry about that record next season.
No, this is true. Yeah, the Ospina thing's very interesting, isn't it? I wonder if it's a height thing. That as a goalkeeper, he's coming out, jumping, and his where he ends up is just where people's shoulders and heads are or something, or he's made of paper mache or some variation thereof. Yeah, the confidence though is the point, isn't it? You just don't feel quite the same when he's there, and you do wonder if that will be a position that's looked at over the summer. Right, Pete, any thoughts on this game? I mean, it's nice to get the win away from home this year. Not that it ultimately really makes a huge difference, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it would have been a very different game had Huddersfield lost to Chelsea in midweek, rather than celebrating staying up, being in desperate need of something out of the game. But yeah, it seems to have been a very nice day. I was very impressed to see the 22-minute tribute to Arsene Wenger from the Huddersfield fans, or I believe they started it anyway. And as you say, really nice to see Aaron Ramsey as captain for Wenger's last game in charge, because I think the two are inextricably linked in many ways, and it does make me worry about Aaron's future at the club. So let's hope he's sticking around for some more, because I think it would be difficult for him under another manager, and I do wonder whether he might take this opportunity to say, well, I've had a great time here with someone who saw me through my younger years as a player, and now it's time for me to move on.
So we're getting some microphone noise of some description. I think we got what you said, and it's an interesting point. We'll come back to that. Well, there we are then. I mean, we'll wrap that bit up, I think, because our league season is very much over. We finished sixth, as we knew we would do anyway. We'll come on to a sort of review of that in a moment, but not really much else to say this week in terms of the way that the football turned out. So let's perhaps move on then to a review of the season. And I was trying to think of different ways of doing this, and the thing that seemed obvious, or not obvious, but one of the options I would consider was looking at it by competition. We haven't had the 4 competitions we were in, and I think that, well, I'm going to do a little bit of that, but ultimately I think I just want a sort of a school grade and a view from people in terms of the overall team performance. If you like, I'll go first, just to give you an idea of what I'm after. I mean, I'd have to say I would give us an F overall, to be frank. And when I say this, I'm putting aside any emotion, any sentiment about the manager, because I think that's important to put to one side. But based purely on what happened on the pitch, I can only classify it as a failure. I think we didn't perform in the league. Finishing 6th is not good enough, let's be honest. And we never looked like getting much higher than that, really, did we? Not once the season got going. FA Cup, we only lasted 1 game, and that's disappointing given our record in that. Obviously, the other cup competitions were more successful, Europa League and the League Cup, although ultimately we fell just short on both of them. But I think the league's where our bread and butter is, obviously. I know everyone says that. I think it's true, and I think the fact that we could only finish 6th after, yes, an admittedly good home half of the campaign, but to be so awful away from home, to lose 13 games, against a lot of teams which are, to be frank, not very good. I mean, if you look, every team below us in the league has a negative goal difference, which is quite incredible. And we just weren't able to, it seems, make the most of our opportunities. I'll come back to something else I was going to say after I've given the others of you a chance to have a thought. So let's go to Matt again. What's your, if you had to sort of sum up the season in a few words like that, where would you put us, and would you give us a particular grade?
No, pretty similar to you. It's been awful for the most part. I think a lot of that has to do in the league with the fact that, Man City aside, I wouldn't say any of the other 4 teams above us have been particularly good. Chelsea have been extremely inconsistent. Tottenham have fallen away. United, for a second place team, haven't been very strong. But as you said, we've been nowhere near them at any point. And I know that for the last few months, the league games haven't really mattered, and now the manager's leaving. It's sort of a farewell tour. But the primary reason he is leaving is because we've been so awful. Away from, I mean, disgraceful for most of the season. FA Cup went out in the first round, and I know we did well in the Carabao Cup and Europa League, but we were able to play the reserves for most of those early rounds. Carabao Cup, we didn't really play anyone decent until we played Chelsea. That was probably two of our best performances over the season. And then Europa League group, we cruised through with a weakened team. Milan away, probably one of the highlights. But then there were still inconsistencies throughout, and comfortably beaten really by Atletico Madrid. So I think it's been a really poor season. The squad seems to have so many issues, which is going to take a lot of dealing with over the summer. And I think we're just a fair way off where we want to be. I don't think we're going to be anywhere near challenging for the title next year. Our first priority just has to be trying to get back into the top 4 and away from the Europa League. Because while it was fun at the start, it soon became pretty tiresome, and I don't think many of us are looking forward to it again next season. So I'd agree with you. It's been a really disappointing season on the whole.
Yeah, we played 14 games in the Europa League, which is a lot. It's the thick end of half of league seasons, certainly more than third, if I get my maths right. And it's a huge amount of resources, if you like, that need to be put in that direction. Now, of course, ideally, we'd be playing the same kind of numbers if we were in the Champions League, but of course, it's just a completely different kettle of fish. It's the kind of thing you want to do. And whilst I think, there were some enjoyable bits about the Europa League, the idea of being in there for another 2, 3, 4 years, I think would be testing for everyone concerned. So, Pete, what do you just based on this season and where would you put us? Because I tend to agree with Matt's point, and his points about the way the team has been left, I think, are very valid as well. And we'll come to that in a sec. But Pete, what do you think?
Well, I think the most disappointing thing has been not being able to escape the Europa League next year, which even by not finishing low enough to get out of it, it's been a real disappointment to find we're in it again and faced with more Thursday, Sunday turnaround, which has just been horrible. I think it was quite fun in the beginning, as I say. I did think that we should approach it in a good way and try and enjoy it, and it was. A lot of the early group games were fun. We fielded reserve teams. They were all quite amusing, and it was often actually that when we were playing at our best was in the Europa League. But I did begin to find it tiresome towards the end, particularly when it came to be the be all and end all of the season. Really, I think it's been very odd because yes, although it's been a disappointing season, there's something that feels very odd to me about it, because actually having been at all the home games, you would think that we've been great in some ways. And if I think of all the games this season that I've seen and been there to see, we've been marvellous. And then all the games that I haven't been there to see, we've been awful.
Well, there's an obvious pattern emerging here then.
It is. It's just very strange, isn't it, to have that poor an away form, but that good a home record just seems just unbelievable. I just can't get my head around it. I can't really get my head around how it's all happened. I think probably the loss in the League Cup final was something we never really recovered from. I think particularly having already gone out of the FA Cup in the third round for the first time ever under Arsene Wenger, wasn't it? It was just astonishing, and I think we never really came back from that and could never really get a foothold away from home. So in the way that we have done in the past, even when we've performed, we've had bad runs and we haven't performed well, we've somehow found a way to get ourselves back together and put on some sort of good run, but towards the end of the season, and this time we just couldn't. And to me, that's just been odd. And it has been disappointing, very disappointing to finish below Tottenham for a second year running. And as I say, even more disappointing to know that we've got to face another season in the Europa League.
I think a point Matt made earlier, they're all good points that I agree with. A point Matt made earlier I meant to mention actually, which is this idea that Man City aside, the other teams above us did not look spectacular, and I agree with that. I think they were more consistent, of course, overall as the league table tells us, but they were, they were. You wouldn't think we'd have to do much more to catch up, but it seems like a chasm at the moment, which is the disappointment for me. So moving on from the season, which is one we will not be remembering, it seems. To change things slightly, I wondered about the idea of particular areas of the team where you think strengthening is required, and avoid the obvious answer of everywhere, which would seem only fair given what we've just said about the season's performance. Matt, I'll start with you because you mentioned it first. You mentioned the importance of Ramsey. We've discussed, of course, all throughout the season our defensive record, central midfield, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I've just named a number of places there. If you only had the money to buy one world-class talent this season, where would you, not so much who, but where would you want them to be on the pitch?
Good question. So many gaps to fill. Probably centre back. I think. I desperately hope that all the rumours coming out of the club that we only have 50 million to spend. It's not true, because then we're going to be in a whole world of trouble. I'd say centre back because although I think we need a new keeper, especially if Ospina leaves, maybe two. I feel like Cech is not the biggest problem. We could probably upgrade him, but he's not the biggest problem in the team. Centre back though, we're probably going to need two. We needed one before Koscielny got injured. Now he's going to be out long term. There seems to be a real gap there. Mustafi has been awful this season. Don't think he deserves to be starting every week next season. And then it's a case of Mavropanos, Holding and Chambers ready. They come in and have good games, but they don't really have a run of games. And when they do, an inevitable mistake comes, and that's because they're still young and inexperienced. So I think we need a centre back that's going to come in and start every week and really make us more solid, because all season that defence has been a real issue, regardless of who we've played. And I think the managerial change will help that, because I think a lot of it has been structural issues. But personnel in terms of centre-back somewhere, I think we really need to focus on. And I think we will. I don't think they're that blind to what the issues are.
No, I mean, I think that's why we need a new man to come in and see the things that we've all seen, but with that different role to do something about it. Now, of course, we don't quite know where the role's going to be. Is it going to be the manager? Is it going to be this backroom staff of not thousands, but a few more than there might have been? Who are actually are these just going to go and say we need X person, you go and do it? Because I think that's the way it should be. To be honest, I think that's the way other clubs do it, and it seems to work. And I think we need to take that approach rather than have everything in the hands of the manager. I much prefer the idea of a coach who his job is to coach the team, sort out, rather than have all this other stuff to worry about. It works well in other sports. It works well in other football teams. So I think that would be something I would hope we're moving towards. But certainly we seem to be doing that, given the personnel that are in place. Pete, same question to you then. If you had one area of the pitch you could strengthen, and if the rumours about the 50 million quid are true, it may only be one area that you're allowed to strengthen. Which would it be for you?
Well, if you've only got 50 million, you might as well spend it on a centre back, mightn't you? Because that's probably the only area of the pitch where that sort of money is going to get you an outstanding individual. Yeah,
well, that's a good point. I was going to say, actually, before I heard from Matt and you, I was going to say central midfield would be my preferred, or defensive midfield, I should say, really, would be my preferred place. But actually, you both make very good points. So I'm wondering if central defence is really the place to go.
I mean, I think partly it's not really about the area. What we'll be faced with is it's not about the area of the pitch. It'll be about who is available and wants to come to play for us. And at the end of the day, if Pat Vieira, or the modern day equivalent of Pat Vieira, is out there and wants to come and play for us, then get him. That's it, isn't it? You just have to get the best player you possibly can with the money available, almost wherever they play, and just hope that a new manager can revive our defence, basically, because we do have a lot of what have appeared across the season at times to be very good defenders. We were all they may be young and inexperienced, but we've all at times this season thought certain members of our defence have looked brilliant.
It's a good point, isn't it? And again, you come back to the outgoing manager, the former Arsenal manager, I think we can now say, who perhaps blame isn't the word I want to use, but perhaps has not got the best out of these players because of the way he wants to do things. He wants to, I don't say he has favourites, I think that's quite fair, but he wants to stick with players and give them a run in the team and stick with them once they've got in, and perhaps that's gone on 2 or 3 games too long on occasion. I mean, look at Xhaka, for example. I think he's virtually never present, isn't he? And yet his performance has left a lot of people underwhelmed, is all I was going to say. Not me necessarily, but a lot of people have not been particularly impressed, and there he is ever present.
That's going to be the interesting thing to see, isn't it? Whether a new manager can actually get more out of the players that we have, or not, and that's what we're going to find out. Everyone's been saying all season, a new manager will be brilliant, they'll come in, they'll get so much more out of these players. Let's see if that's true.
It's a very good point, and I think anything we say sort of does have that in mind. That everyone has, well, not everyone, that's not fair, but lots of people, and I include myself, have been wanting a change, but wanting it to be done in the right way. I think we've just about got there in the end. But yeah, absolutely. I think people who wanted that and expect things to be better immediately could very well be disappointed, shall we say.
Indeed, yeah.
So let's move on then to the manager, the former Arsenal manager, Arsene Wenger. Now, we've talked about him quite a bit over the last couple of weeks, so I didn't want to spend too long, but I thought perhaps it was only fitting, given it was his last game, to just have from you both, and from me for that matter, just a sentence on, and you can be as positive or negative with this. I've looked at my little notes and I realised I'm going to be quite negative, which is a bit unfair, but just about a legacy, achievements, and something along those lines. But if we keep it quite brief, and then we can look to the future. So Matt, you can go first on this one if you like.
Yeah, I think the way he's handled himself in recent weeks, he's done it with good humour, and he has seemed to enjoy himself a lot, which is good. I wanted him to leave because I thought that's what the team needed, and that was what was best. But when you see him speak, and when you see how much he loves the club, and when you see how much it means to him, I almost felt guilty for feeling that, because as a man, he's as good as we'll probably ever have. But he's done a huge amount for this club. But unfortunately, and it is unfortunately, because if I had to choose any manager in the world that I wanted to win the league for us, of course it would be him. But that doesn't look like it's going to be possible. So we can't focus on sentimentality. We have to remember we are at least trying to appear to be a competitive football club. So the change was necessary. I think it's been nice the way the fans have come together. I'm sure the divisions that have surrounded Wenger over the next few years will be forgotten, and people will be able to remember the incredible things he's done for this club. And I hope that's the case, because he's been a brilliant manager for us, an incredible person, and I think we're definitely going to miss him, both having him on the pitch managing, but in terms of just the way he carries himself around the club and in the media.
I can't argue with any of that. That's very, very nicely put, I think. I'll save my little bit till the end. Pete, your thoughts along about what he's done, and what you think now he's moving on.
Well, it's just been magnificent for 22 years as a person and as a manager. And more than anything, I'll just agree with what he said to us at the end, which is that I'll miss him very much. And, I hope he is happy, and I hope things go well for him outside the club. I do actually, in some ways, kind of hope that he goes to another Premiership club and comes back and gives us a real whooping.
Well, I can't agree with you on that one, but I see the point you're getting at. I hope, actually, and listening to both of what you've said, one of the little notes I had, I hope that he accepts it, because I still don't think he has in some ways. I don't mean he's going to turn up in August in that sense. In the sense that I still don't think he believes it's the best thing for the club. I think he still thinks he should be the manager next season. And whilst he's said nice things and the right things, as you'd expect, because none of this is about him as a person, because I think we're all in agreement about his qualities in that area, if you like. But I still get the impression, particularly the first week or so after it was announced, that he doesn't really think this should be happening. Yet everything shows it should be. We haven't won the league for so long. We know all the problems. We know how brilliant the first sort of 10 years of his reign were, and how, relatively speaking, poor the next 10 have been. We've got the worst defensive record we've ever had during his 22 years this year. The team is stale. The team has regressed. We're not challenging for the top four. Certainly nowhere near challenging for the title. Even if you could take 20 points off City's total, and we still wouldn't be anywhere near them. So I think there's a lot. So the current legacy is actually a team that's not in a very good state, a club that's not in a very good state, and I think the next man in is going to have a hell of a job. This, of course, doesn't belittle, as it were, his achievements before that, which were magnificent and incredible and will never be forgotten. But I hope he finds some comfort in some way, and because I don't think he's absorbed it. I don't think he thinks he should be going, and I hope over the next month or whatever, how long it takes, that he just finds some peace, for want of a better word. It sounds a bit dramatic, but that's what I'm trying to get at. So Well, we'll move on from him for now, as indeed the club has to do. I'm sure he'll come up in plenty of conversations in the future. And we'll look briefly before we finish at the potential next manager. Now, the first thing to say, of course, is we don't know who the next manager is going to be. There's been lots of stuff being said now. The seasons are finishing around Europe. So, for example, yesterday I think it was Allegri said he was going to stay at Juventus for next season. The betting I'm looking at the moment now has Arteta right up at the top, and much to Matt and indeed everyone else's delight, Brendan Rodgers, who this morning was at around 14-1, is now coming to 3-1, second favourite, which is quite something. Allegri is still third favourite, so who knows what's going on. We'll do the same kind of thing we did before, but with a bit more updated information. Matt, on the basis that we have no inside information or no knowledge,
No.
But you can go on stuff you've heard, of course. Who would you like to be the next Arsenal manager? Let's keep it simple.
I've been desperate for it to be Allegri. I think he's exactly what we need. I think he'd be able to sort our defence out. I think he's ruthless, which is something we hadn't had for a while. And I think he'd be tactically adept enough to make us maybe not challenge for the title. I'm not going to say he's a miracle worker, but a vast improvement on where we're at the moment. Sadly, that's looking increasingly unlikely. I'm not sure you can blame him. He's got a pretty good job at Juventus, 4 doubles in a row. And he said he's not going to leave, probably not going to leave this summer unless he's sacked. And I can't see him being sacked.
No,
so
that would be quite poor.
That is a real blow, which leaves Arteta appearing, from what the media are saying and from what Gazidis said about a young coach being the favourite. I've got a few issues with Arteta. One being he's never managed a game. I just don't think we're in the right place as a club, and the amount of changes and help we need to take a risk like that. I have no issues with Arteta. I see some people saying that they're going to start protesting immediately. I think that's ridiculous. Of course you give him a chance, but
That's a bit ridiculous. That is ridiculous, isn't it?
Get the planes out ready when another banner on its way. No, I'm sure he's learnt a lot from putting out the cones for Guardiola, and I know he captained us, but I don't think those particularly put him as the standout candidate to be our manager. I'd like someone with a bit more experience. And I saw today Sky saying the two favourites is between Arteta or Nagelsmann, who's a 30-year-old from Hoffenheim. If we're going to go young, I'd much rather go for him. Done really well at Hoffenheim, taken them way above where they were before he took over Champions League for consecutive years. And at least he has some experience, despite being youthful. We have some idea that he has ability as a manager, whereas Arteta would be a complete gamble that I don't think it's necessary to take. However, if it's between Arteta and Rodgers, I will drive Arteta personally to our training ground and help him unpack. So those are my views.
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, you have been consistent with Allegri, I think, if we listened back to the previous pods, and you make excellent reasons as to why that would be a good thing. I'm going to go on the basis that he's not coming because he said he wasn't. Intimated that. I'll go with Arteta. I think even with the many reasonable sort of doubts about it that you've expressed, given that where we are now, that he does look like he's in the box seat, although of course this has been changing over the last few weeks quite a lot anyway. It's a hell of a step up, but I would hope that some of the pressure will be taken off, as I alluded to, by this backroom team doing some other stuff, some of the contracts, whatever, that perhaps he can just focus on what he must be good at, which is just the coaching and what have you. The lack of experience is obviously a huge issue, but you hope that that's taken into consideration and he's allowed to appoint whoever he wants to help him. Pep Guardiola, actually, as an assistant might not be a bad idea. I fear that tells you that wouldn't work. So, of the list, I mean, that's who I'd go for. I don't really know enough about any of the other European candidates. So, of course, if they're that they're being discussed, they're obviously all qualified, for want of a better word. But I'm not. If they want to go young and we have this period of readjustment, should we say, then I'm happy to have him in the chair. Although, there's probably other people I prefer, but we have to be realistic. If we'd done this a couple of years ago, we might have had Guardiola, we might have had Klopp. These things have come up as potentials and discussion points. But I wouldn't be too disappointed if he got the job. And I'm willing to give anyone a try, although obviously not Brendan Rodgers. The idea of the fans already not being happy with Arteta or whoever, just it's laughable, to be honest. I heard something like that earlier, and that just seems ridiculous. Pete, who would you like to be the next Arsenal manager?
Well, I'll come back to that in a minute, if you don't mind. But first of all, I'd just like to say, I mean, this is where we find out whether we have just made a huge mistake, isn't it? Because the fact is, we're not going to get anyone that anyone would really want. As Matt said, Allegri is probably the right guy to come in and work on this defence and be able to turn us into a successful team again. And bring success to the club. But we're not going to be able to get him, and we're not going to be able to get anyone who actually is capable of doing the necessary. I really honestly believe that. I do not believe, and I've never believed that's the case. I believe we will get someone who will come in and do a worse job than Arsene Wenger was doing. I think that will happen. As I say, because I just don't think we as a club are capable of going and employing somebody of the caliber that we need to, which is probably someone like Allegri, etc. But we will see. And we haven't even got the board haven't even got the nerve to go out and look at somebody older and possibly who might but they will just go for a young manager who they can hope will pull something off while they go and do whatever they have been wanting to do all this time when Arsene Wenger's been in total charge of everything, because that's all they've been really worried about. They haven't been able to have their fun, or Ivan Gazidis anyway, they haven't been able to have their part in the game, and we shall see what happens. But my fervent view is that we will not get anyone who is actually capable of doing a better job than Arsene Wenger was already doing. But we shall see, and I'll be very happy to be proved wrong to some extent should that happen, and particularly if we do get someone like Allegri. Who would I like? I've been thinking. As I say, I don't believe we're actually capable of getting somebody who can have success with the team. So in terms of who I would like to see, who I would like more than anything else isn't in the betting and won't be coming. And I'm kind of serious about this as well. I would like Chris Hughton to come and manage Arsenal.
That's an interesting name. You're going on the basis that I was talking about the last couple of weeks about some kind of young English manager, for want of a better phrase. That kind of idea. I'm sure if they asked him, he'd come.
And just a decent guy, just a really decent guy doing a decent job. Who, a man with integrity, a man who has managed and has done well and is doing things at a level, and a man who I think possibly could make the step up. I'm not totally convinced he could, but I just like him basically more than anything else. And when it comes to who I would like to be managing Arsenal at the moment, it's someone that I like and admire, and to some extent that's him.
So Pete, you do realise the other person who has suggested Chris Hughton as the replacement is apparently Paul Merson. I was just looking online to see if anyone else had suggested it, and Paul Merson, it's apparently so. Yesterday, and I know it was in the Daily Express, so I can be pretty sure you didn't get your information from there.
I didn't.
An interesting idea.
It just came to me it was at our last home game of the season, actually, that I suddenly realised that's because lots of people were saying, who should take over, he's just someone that I like him despite his sort of old Spursiness.
Well, apart from that, obviously he's got experience of managing in this country and at the right level and all the rest of it, so it's not a ridiculous suggestion, although Paul Merson did suggest it, so now it becomes a ridiculous suggestion, unfortunately. And
he doesn't appear in the betting at all, I imagine.
Not in the list I've got in front of me, because that's what I was doing. I was doing a quick search to see if he appeared anywhere, but in the place I have, no. And they've got down to 250 to 1 on the list I'm looking at, which is includes Alan Pardew and Alan Kirbishley, for example. So that's how much of an outsider
there you go.
appeared to be, but there we go. Anyway, very interesting point. We won't talk about potential players that might come in, because if we can't even work out who the manager's going to be, there's not much point trying to guess the players we might be going for. So we'll save that for another time. So we're coming towards the end of the pod then, but we cannot possibly complete the pod without discussing the Prediction League. So despite getting no points at all this week, Matt got no points. Pete and I both got a point each because we said we beat Huddersfield. But Matt, congratulations to him. He is the winner of the overall competition and the League and Cup competition. So Matt, congratulations. You've won the double.
Thank you. I mean, this week I was just playing the reserves. I was on the beach. I played the youth team this week. It didn't matter. It was all about the trophy parade. I think the key to this Prediction League early on was realising that the best tactic was to predict us to lose. It's something I stuck with thoroughly throughout the season, and it's served me well. So in a weird way, thank you to Arsenal for being so awful.
Living down to expectations, as it were. You ended up with 41 points. I ended up with 35, and Pete was on 32. Now, considering I haven't actually checked. I think we had
got quite close.
You got within 3, but that was because you think that was. I think it's 59 games we played this season. Or something 59 we did a prediction in. So you could have got 3 points in each. So we could have got somewhere like 170 odd. But as a percentage, it was really quite poor. But I dare say we can try it again. But congratulations to Matt, as I say. So that was an excellent performance. We don't have any predictions to do, of course, at the moment. We've done predictions, sort of, on the manager. That wasn't really predictions so much as who we would like it to be.
Can we not do the pre-season friendlies?
Not now, no. if you're that keen, if you're really that keen, we'll meet in July to do it. But I'm not sure that will be hugely popular, but we'll wait and see. What I will say then is this is our final pod of this season. I'm assuming we'll be back in some form next season. I'll chat to the chaps about that. But I think we will be back sooner than that to do a pod, because I think when the new manager is announced, and I thought there might be a possibility of it being announced before the end of the season, but as we got close to the end of the season, it became reasonably clear that wasn't going to happen. I'm sure we will be back to do a little special pod on that, so you probably won't be very long before you hear from us at all. But until then, I will say thank you very much for their company to my co-podders. So Pete, thank you for your company all year.
Thank you very much, Matt. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you have a great summer, and I shall see you at Boreham Wood on the 14th of July.
Is that when the first pre-season game is, the 14th? I don't mess around here.
14th of July, 3 o'clock.
And Matt, thank you again for another season we've managed to get through. I'm hoping next season we'll have there'll be more fun stuff to discuss.
Thank you. I look forward to our games against Singapore 11 and whoever else we managed to cobble together. Thank you for your company this season. Thank you everyone who listened. And yeah, it's been good fun.
Yeah, I hope no one thinks we're some kind of lightweights if we don't cover the pre-season games in depth before and after, because I certainly have no intention to. Well, thank you very much both again. I think we will be back before too long, probably with a manager pod, and then we'll be back next season in some form to do all of this again, and hopefully with a slightly more successful outcome, perhaps a shiny outcome at the end. That would be nice. So for all of us, thank you very much for listening all season, and we'll speak to you at some point in the near future. Take care. Bye-bye.